Hello everyone, it's Dio from Firm But Fair Gaming, bringing you another Diablo 3 video. Today we are bringing you the zBarb, or the Zero Support Barb, which basically means the Zero Damage Barb. So basically the zBarb's group responsibility is to keep everybody alive, scout ahead for elites, pylons, and map exits, and to pull together mobs and create tight packs for the trash killer to blow up, and then to provide stuns at appropriate times on both trash packs and on the Rift Guardian for the RGK. So first, let's take a look at the gear. The gear has a few different variations that you can have, but first and foremost is we are going to be wearing 4-piece Raycors, well technically 3 pieces with a Ring of Royal Grandeur, but we'll get into that, and then 2-piece Savages. So the reason that we're wearing the Raycors is because the 4-piece bonus gives our charge 1 every rune and effect, as well as the 2-piece bonus, which is when we charge, if we hit one target, it refunds the charge and we could charge again. So basically, it's a damage mitigation as well as a movement ability or great mobility through the map. So this will help us charge from one end of the map to the other. And then additionally, our shouts, we're wearing 2-piece Savages for the 2-piece bonus, which is double the effectiveness of our shout. So that goes for Falter as well as for our War Cry, which increases our allies' armor. So that's why we wear that. For our jewelry, our neck piece, we're going to wear Flavor of Time. So the reason we wear Flavor of Time is because basically if we get a conduit, it lasts twice as long, and that's the first and foremost best reason to wearing it. We're also going to wear, for a ring, we're going to wear the Oculus ring. So we wear this because, of course, when mobs die, it's going to create a circle for either just the trash killer or the RGK to stand in, and they'll deal up to 85% increased damage. So both support classes should be wearing this because then it has a chance to spawn 2 circles overlapping, which means that they'll deal twice as much damage, or rather, if you're both wearing rings at max, they'll deal 170% increased damage. The other ring we're going to be wearing is the Ring of Royal Grandeur, as I previously mentioned, because it reduces the number of set items you need to get the bonus by 1. So that's what allows us to get away with only wearing 3-piece Raycors. Additionally, you could wear a Band of Might here. So you're either, but that is typically in the cube because the Band of Might reduces the damage you take after you stomp or charge up to 80%. So it's most often cube because the cube gives you the max benefit. Whereas this, the Ring of Royal Grandeur, there is no max benefit, or it is what it is. So for our belt, there's 2 options. So you can wear Pride of Cassius. So this increases the duration of Ignore Pain by 6 seconds. Or you can wear Chilanix Chain, which when using War Cry increases the movement speed for you and your allies. So whichever one that you're not wearing, the other one goes into the cube in a 4-player group. If you're doing 2s or 3s, you might have to pick and choose between one of those belts, or you run into where you might need to choose between strong arms and NEMs. Talking about those two, those are the bracers that we're wearing. So NEMs, my barb is currently set up for 2s, which is why I was wearing NEMs. So you wear NEMs because it's either you or the other Z support that is supposed to wear it. And then also you need strong arms, which is when an enemy is hit by knockbacks, they suffer up to 30% increased damage for 6 seconds. So the knockback is from your stomp as well as your charge. For a weapon, we're using the pig sticker because it's got the unique ability of having cooldown on it, which we need. And then for our boots, we're using the illusory boots. This lets you move unhindered through enemies, so this is pretty handy that if you charge into the middle of the group and you don't have another charge, or if you stomp and your charge is down, you're stuck in the middle, you can just walk right through them and you're fine. For a shield, we're using the Storm Shield. So I like this one because it reduces the melee damage that you can receive, so it's pretty handy. It just helps with a little bit extra survivability. There's another option that we can have for weapons. So we could run the Slanderer and Little Rogue, and basically every time you spend a primary resource, you gain 6% increased attack speed, damage, and armor for 5 seconds. So this is just more for the armor bonus and our extra survivability while we're moving through the map. For our gems, so currently what I'm using is the gem of efficacious toxin. Sorry if I butchered that. So basically poison all enemies, hit for 90, well, this is because it's rank 150, so an X% of weapon damage over 10 seconds, but mainly it's more for the secondary point when you get it to 25. All enemies you poison take 10% increased damage from all sources and deal 10% less damage. That's the real reason you use it. I'm also using Gogok of Swiftness. So this is just basically to give me dodge percentage as well as to give me a little bit of CDR, because again, the secondary bonus if it's level 25 or higher is gain 1% cooldown reduction per stack of Swiftness. So that, and it stacks up to 15 times. So that just gives me an extra 15% of CDR so that my Stomp, Charge, Ignore Pain, like all my shouts, everything's up a little bit faster. We're also using esoteric alterations. So this is again, so we gain 60% non-physical damage reduction. We're weak versus magic, so that's pretty handy. And also while below 50% life, your resistance to cold, like basically all our resistance are increased by 75%. I'm also using a Gem of Ease in my pig sticker that is just for extra experience for the group. You could also use there like a life per hit if you need it. I like the Gem of Ease just because Paragon is king in Diablo, so it never hurts to get a little bit extra XP. For the cube, generally you would not be using Executioner. As I said earlier, I was doing twos, so that's why I had Executioner, because of course Executioner basically as soon as a mob drops below 10% health, you touch it, it instantly dies, hence the name the Executioner. So I was running that in twos because I was running with a wizard who does not have an execute. Generally speaking, lately, the most meta groups will run a necromancer, and a necromancer has a curse that will kill execute at 15% or 18% if they spec into it, which means we'll be using Messersmith's Reaver as our weapon slot. So that reduces the remaining cooldown of one of your skills by 1 second when you slay an enemy. So it just helps keep all our abilities off CD. That is mainly what you'll use in meta groups. Secondly, so for the armor, I was using strong arms again. So that's because I was doing twos. In a group meta situation, you would either use Chilanix Chain or Pride of Cassius. And then, of course, for the last slot, I was using Band of Might, as mentioned earlier, because when it's in the cube, it maxes out. So here, as you can see, it would give me the 80% damage reduction for 8 seconds. For stat priority, so my personal opinion is the stat priority is as follows: Vitality, then Intelligence, Resist All, Cooldown Reduction, Life per hit, and then for secondary we have Pickup Radius and Global Health Pot Life. So Vitality is our number one stat because, and I'll just say this, so because once you hit level 70, basically from leveling, we gain enough strength that, and strength of course turns into armor, that we get enough damage mitigation out of that alone that we don't really need to spec into anything else. And also our main pieces of gear that we can't get away from are also going to have strength. So we're going to have more than enough strength to give us the armor damage mitigation that we need. So then after that, we need hit points, which, because we're going to be taking a bunch of damage, we need the hit points to sustain being hit. On top of that, our weakness really is just magic damage. So that is why intelligence and resist all are second and third top stat, because intelligence translates into resist all. So that helps us against the magic damage. So on my particular guy, I happen to have intelligence on a few gears. So here I have it on my bracers, I have it on my shield, and I have it on one of my rings. So I try to stack as much intelligence as I can to build that resist all. After that, we want cooldown reduction because it's going to help our shouts get off CD quicker as well as our charge. And that is just key because we need to be able to shout as often as possible, falter so that enemies take more damage, as well as ignore pain so that our RGK and Trash Killer are immune to CC effects. Life per hit is the last main stat, as I'll call it. So that's if everything has everything else on it, or if you feel like you've hit the certain thresholds that you want to hit for CDR and all that stuff, and you want a little bit more survivability, then life per hit could work. Get a little bit low, charge into a group, you're going to be back to full health. For secondary stats, we want pickup radius. So that's where we can pick up health globes or by 1 to 2 yards, or we want the globe or health pot bonus just for that extra survivability. For our Paragon, we're going to first start by maximizing our movement speed, and then we'll maximize our Fury. And then our remaining Paragon points as we get them, we're going to do about 75% into Vitality and then 25% into Strength. So again, Strength goes into Armor, and so Vitality, we want to have a big health pool so we can take some hits as we go. For offense, our first one is going to be cooldown reduction, followed by attack speed, and then it doesn't matter what you want to pick here. We deal 0 damage, so these are just negligible. For defense, it kind of depends on what you're finding you're dying to first. Is it more magic damage, or is it you're taking too much of a beating from just regular mobs? So I would either pick life or resist all, depending on what you're finding, but those would be the first two that I would max out, and then I would max out life regen, and then lastly I would max out armor. For our utility, we're going to put 0 points into area damage, because of course the higher rifts you get, area damage becomes a huge problem in Diablo 3 because it starts doing complex computations for every mob that's hit, and if everybody's rocking area damage, then it does so many computations it basically causes a screen freeze, which could even black you out, and everybody's kind of locked up, and then it catches up, and then your entire party's dead. So for here, we will start with life per hit for survivability, and then I would go into gold pickup radius, and then I'll go into cost reduction, and then I would never put any points in this. For our skills, we're going to do ground stomp with wrenching smash. So basically that stuns everything for 4 seconds and brings them all together. So this is what we need for our pixel stomps. We're going to do furious charge. So there's 2 different charges you could use here, or sorry, runes that you can apply. So we can do the cold rush here, which so all enemy hits are frozen for 2.5 seconds. So this was just a little bit of extra CC. We can also do the Merciless Assault, so recharge time is reduced by 2 seconds for every enemy hit. This effect can reduce the recharge time by up to 10 seconds, but basically it lets you fly from one side of the map all the way to the other. You can also, if you really want, you can have Dreadnought, which stores up to 3 charges as well. But most people will run Merciless Assault. I had Cold Rush on just as an extra CC for the wizard that I was running with. We of course want Ancient Spirit with Rage Flip, so this helps us when we're grouping up mobs. If you throw your spirit, brings the mob towards you, helps create the groups that you're going to stack and stomp on for your Trash Killer. We of course want Threatening Shout with Falter because it causes enemies to take 25% increased damage, and with our Savages set it's going to double that, so they take 50% more damage. Ignore Pain, Mob Rule. This is probably our most important ability. So this is what gives everybody the immunity to the crowd control for 5 seconds plus the increased time due to Pride of Cassius. And then War Cry, this just increases everybody's armor. And so again, and dodge chance. And so of course, this is also doubled by the Savages set. For our passive skills, I'm rocking Nerves of Steel. So this basically is it's our second life. So instead of dying, we get 15% of our life back and we take 95% reduced damage. Generally speaking, I found I didn't really need this, but I just kept it as an insurance policy because if you go down, the group loses their scouting ability, the crowd control on the trash, as well as the grouping mechanic as well with your stomps and your spears. So I figured it was better to stay alive for the group, so I would take that. Relentless is again just while you're below 35% life, all skills cost less, but it's more important. It's the damage reduction taken is reduced by 50%. You do spend a lot of time not at max health, So it is good to have a little bit of a extra mitigation along the way, because again, you do not want to go down. Inspiring Presence, so this just the duration of the shouts are doubled, and also it causes a bit of a life regen there with 3% of maximum life per second is regen for 120 seconds. So that just helps your group stay alive a little bit longer. Sword and Board, so this is just while we're wearing a shield, we reduce all damage taken by 30% and reduce the fury cost by 20, but mainly this is just a damage mitigation for a little bit extra survivability. So now let's just jump into a rift, and we're going to jump into 150 here and just show you the zBarb in action. So of course, as soon as we come in, we're going to want to pop all our shouts, give everybody the ignore pain as well as the double the veteran's warning there for their increased armor and dodge. And then we're just going to start exploring the map. So basically what we're trying to do is we're trying to find a big room that has lots of mobs in it so our trash killer can set up and so that we can post up and start getting a bunch of progress. The idea is to create as big of a group as possible to get our progress moving and not to block any pylon spawns. So I'm just going to run around here and get this. So this might, ideally, if I could get this elite over here, we would probably stack up and then we would blow it up over here. So basically when you're getting ready to start, like the other trash, or the trash killer and the other support and the RGK would probably just sit here, you group it all up and they start working on it and you would go explore the map and see what else there is. And you got to come back every about 8 seconds because you want to stomp and get the group the trash all gathered together for the trash killer so you can do an efficient job. As well as you want to give them the shouts so that they have ignore pain so they can't be CC'd. So now when we're talking about the stomps and whatever, so you want to try to do a pixel stomp. So basically what that is you would like to get to a spot where there are no mobs currently, but close to where they all are, and you're going to stomp. So here there's nothing here. I'm going to stomp, and it brought all those mobs that were close, and it put them all on that pixel, which means they're all so tight. So when your trash killer is doing his area damage, he's going to deal maximum damage to that group of trash. So if I'm doing it here, like there I was standing on top of them, they didn't really move, nothing really happened. So what you really want to do is you want to get pretty close to them and you want to find that empty spot and then you just want to stomp and it brings them all on top of it and then your trash killer can deal maximum damage. Now there is diminishing returns on the stomp and how it is, the calculation for it, from my understanding, is that for every 1 second of CC, so stomp is 4 seconds stun, it applies 10% diminishing return. So that means on one stomp, they have 40% diminishing return. So that means the next time, if I was to stomp again right away, it would not last for the full 4 seconds. So it takes 1 second stun applies a 10% DR, and then for every second that they're not stunned, or a new CC is applied, it loses 5%. So if they're stunned for 4 seconds, you don't try to stun them again. By the time they're out, 20% of that DR is going to be off. Now, if I was to stun right away, again, now that 20% is on it, my 4 second stomp is going to be 20% less effective. And if I keep doing that, eventually the mob is going to be 100% immune to crowd control and I'm going to stomp and nothing's going to happen. So basically what we want to do is we want to be aware of that and we only want to stomp when it's at 0% so we can get a maximum 4 second stun on it unless otherwise needed. So there are certain rotations that, like for a Crusader, their holy cycle was 16 seconds. So you could stomp once at the start when you're on the Rift Guardian and then you would stomp again at the second half of the rotation just to keep it stunned for the full duration. But otherwise, like for a Necromancer Trash Killer, or their cycle is much shorter, you would only get the one stomp off, because if you tried to stomp a second time, their rotation would be back up and then it would be ill effective when you stomp that time. So it all depends on what the comp is that you're running and what you're trying to do. So the other thing that you want to try to keep in mind is that you need to also charge to keep your survivability up, your Band of Might stack. So what you want to do is when you're stomping, so you stomp and bring them all together, charge off to the side so that you're not applying a DR to the group, because the charge does a knockback and a little bit of CC, so it does start diminishing returns. So you want to stomp there, brought them all together, and then, you know, if you need to, charge off to the side so that you're not adding any DR to the group. So I'm just going to do one more, look for a pixel, stomp. That one wasn't that great, but that's pretty much the mechanic. So I'm just going to dodge around. When I need the charge, I'm going to charge off to the side, and then I'm just going to find an empty spot, which is a little bit challenging. That was actually pretty good. And it brings them all together, and then your trash killer would do what he could to blow them all up. So otherwise, your job is basically you're going to be exploring the map, looking for where some pylons might spawn. You got to watch your group's progression, and figure out, like, is there a pylon spawn that might be up around the corner? If so, then you got to pull back to the group, because you do not want to block the pylon. Also, you got to make sure that you're getting back to the group on a regular basis, because you need to apply ignore pain and give them all their shouts, because you don't want them to be susceptible to CC, because that's how your trash killer dies. The trash killer is, generally speaking, one of the squishier classes. Sometimes even the RGK has some bad luck running through some of the dungeons. They might die as well. So you want to make sure you get back to give all your shouts, ignore pain, everything, and then go back to scouting and stacking. So you really, with this build, you're pretty mobile. Like I'm using the Dreadnought, so I have 3 charges here. Merciless Assault is even more mobile. So it really doesn't take long. Like, you can scout all the way up here, and then you can fly back to your group in a matter of seconds to reapply the shouts. And then, you know, you do a couple stomps and CC. You also want to try to make sure that you're back on the rotation to apply the stomp for your trash killer's rotation as well. So you'd never go too far, because unless maybe if the trash was almost wrapped up and, you know, it was going to die without going through the next rotation, you might explore a little bit further. But you just try to make it back every, I would say, 12 to 16 seconds, depending on what your trash killer is, because you want to make sure you get that stomp off. So that's pretty much the mechanics of what you want to do in the group play on the support barb. It's a lot of fun. It's very mobile. It does have a little bit of a learning cap. To be really good at it, you really got to be timely with your stomp placements to get the pixel stomps, to make sure that you're back in time to provide them on time, and to make sure that you're back on time to give the shouts. Also, you want to make sure that you yourself don't die, so you might be holding on to your stomp a little bit just to make sure you're waiting for your trash killer RGK's rotation to come up. Just make sure you get your charge off so your Bandamite is always proc, so you all of a sudden just don't get smacked and die. So this is our zBarb support video. I hope you have enjoyed it. If you have any questions or comments, please let us know below. I'd be happy to have a chat with you to discuss any questions that you have, any feedback as well. And as always, we appreciate any likes and subscribes. And of course, you can find us on Twitch. Happy hunting.